Hey, Will King here. Today we're back in the crawl space, this old historic home. Now you may recognize it from a previous video where we were talking about what we were going to do to fix this nasty crawl space. And today we're actually going to show you a little bit of what we did and how it's been performing. So if you remember from the last video, now this house was built in 1826, so it's almost 200 years old. It's a brick foundation wall, so no waterproofing's in place. And so obviously we had moisture issues. Obviously it was dirty down here. There was insulation falling from the ceiling. It was a total wreck. But the first thing we wanted to do when we got this property was to rehab the crawl space. And now I've done this on several properties. And in fact, when we build new houses, it's the only way that I will construct a new house is with a conditioned, sealed crawl space. Now, but obviously this crawl space was existing. It's not a new construction home. So we had to come up with a plan to rehab it, clean it up, and then condition it going forward and to hopefully give this house another 200 years of life. So the first thing we did was just clean it up, obviously, and that took several days of just getting all the debris and the trash and just 200 years worth of random items that we found in the crawl space, including some dead raccoons. So once that was pulled out and all the insulation was out, we went through a lot of the electrical and plumbing had to be repaired, replaced. This thing's been put together several different times throughout the years. But then it was up to my spray foam company, and most spray foam companies do this. So if you are looking for a solution to your crawl space, call your spray foam contractor. They're typically going to be the ones that can come in and take and then do your crawl space for you. And I find they might even be more cost effective than some of the crawl space companies that get advertised all the time. But now this job, they use a 20 mil plastic, and you can see it's super thick and tough. And I like it because when you're crawling around on it to do more repairs or to do inspections, you're a lot less risk of tearing it. So that's really nice. Now, most companies like the one that I use, they're going to use a seam tape. So where the plastic overlays with each other, they do like a 3 to 6 inch lap typically. They're going to tape those seams, and that's going to give you a nice barrier. Because remember, we're trying to keep moisture and air from underneath the plastic from coming up. So the seams get taped. They normally go around the piers. They'll just cut the plastic, go around them, and then they'll use closed cell foam to seal around the piers. Now, also this one had some existing masonry walls that the plastic had to get adhered to. And now, I pulled a trick out from our friend Sega, and not a trick, it's just what their tape's used for, the fin trim tape, but it's what we use for our stud wall connection to our foundation, and that you've seen in some other videos to get that air seal, because the fin trim tape will stick to CMU or to concrete walls with no primer. So that's what we had to utilize on certain areas of this crawl space basement area too. Now they wrap it up the wall about a foot, and then they come back with their closed cell foam and they spray not only the piers, but then they spray all the foundation walls too on the inside. Now, we're in climate zone 3, so depending on where you are, you need to check the local code or the state code for your crawl space value, the R value that they're spraying on the inside. But here we used 1 inch of closed cell foam. That's about an R7 that we have on the inside. Now, I will tell you that it has made a big impact in the feel of this house. Immediately I noticed a difference in the moisture content down in our crawl space, the air tightness. You could just tell the house was better sealed, and it had a lot easier time regulating temperature on the main level above us. Now, when you do this, you do have to have a dehumidifier running. Some are going to run more than others depending on several other factors in your house. But now, these are, I think, Sierra Global makes the ones that I'm using still right now. Now, this is also the one that we use during construction or in temporary instances. This is about a 75 pint a day dehumidifier, and I think I have one here that's actually a 100 pint as well. They have built-in condensate pumps, so you can set them anywhere. That makes it easy. Now, if you want to take it a step further, one thing you can do, our friends at Santa Fe have ventilating dehumidifiers. Now, when you get into talking about fresh air ventilation in your crawl space, especially on a newer, tighter home, it becomes even more important. You can have a 6 inch line coming into that dehumidifier with a damper, and so then you could introduce fresh air into your crawl space. That's going to just keep that airspace ventilated and help keep the air quality upstairs even better. So that's definitely something to consider. So you can probably tell behind me that this is a new furnace that we installed in this house. Now, the air conditioner in this place was a mess. There's actually old coal chutes coming in with the old furnace, and then we had boiler lines going up to the top floor. We had several different things that we were kind of going through to figure out what was what, and they had 2 units on the main level crossed together that were also supplying air to the top floor. So needless to say, we tore all that out and started over. Now this is a new 5-stage Infinity from Carrier, but it's just a gas furnace, just a high efficiency furnace. And so so far it has performed very well in this house, both in the warm season and now into the winter months, keeping it nice and warm and inside the house. And that gas fire really gets the air temperature up quickly, which is nice in an old home like this. And I would say if you're renovating an old house with not good air tightness, not good insulation value in your walls, you really should consider the warmth of a gas-fired furnace. Now we've got it conditioned, we've got it cleaned up, we've got our furnace replaced. It's pretty well air sealed at this point. What's next? So one thing is we still have to work on some lighting. I think that's a big deal to me when I have especially a mechanical room like we're standing in, is to have better lights. In so many basements, so many crawl spaces, you just see a standard little light bulb and it just doesn't put off enough. Now, part of this basement area, we've actually put in some neat 4-foot LED strips that just plug in. You can strap them to the bottom of the floor joist and they really put off a lot of light. So we'll definitely be adding some more in here. But now, like I mentioned earlier, this crawl space foundation is just brick, and that's 200-year-old brick. It's not waterproofed, obviously. So we have noticed in heavy rains that we've had over the last few months, some water infiltration coming into the basement, specifically even where I'm standing, which is a little bit lower section of the basement. And that's to be expected. And so I think that obviously we have to manage that. And how are we going to manage that? It's the question. Now, the first thing I tell anybody that asks me how they get water out of their crawl space is I say go outside and look at your gutters, look at your slope away from your house and your landscape beds. So that's obviously one thing here. Our fall away from the house is pretty good, but because of the architectural design of this house from 200 years ago, it's not set up for gutters. It would be pretty challenging to put gutters actually on the overhangs of this house. So that means you have to have a ground gutter. So you have to find the drip line coming off your roof and figure out a way to put a French drain in to channel that water away from your house to keep it from just pouring into your basement. Now, this house has had those in the past. You can still see the evidence where people have done those over the years, but we feel like they have failed. I don't think they're draining well. And so what we're going to do next is replace those ground gutters to help get water out. That's on the outside. So I think it's always easier and always best to stop water from the outside first. But what if it still gets in, which I still expect it to going forward on this project or on this house over the life of this house. So what you'll see next is that we're going to end up putting a sump pump in the slab. So you'll just dig down through the concrete about 3 feet by a sump pump basin with an actual pump that'll go in, and all the if any water does get in on top of the slab, we can channel it to that by cutting little rips or little channels in the concrete with a skill saw. But it also helps relieve pressure from coming up from underneath the slab. So done that on several jobs, even some historic jobs that we've done. And it really makes a big difference on any water infiltration get into your basement. It helps alleviate that, and it gives it a way back out in the event that it does get in. So guys, I hope you learned a little bit today about crawl space rehab and crawl space renovation, specifically on a historic home like the one that we're standing in. If you're not following us on Instagram, please go do so. We're at High Cotton Homes. We'd love to connect with you there. But in the meantime, keep grinding, keep watching these videos, and we'll see you again next week.